All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of SoulCast, where we bring you interviews of the big names, the ones that hopefully you want to hear from, and all that good stuff. So it's just me again. I am Scott, aka Zhang on the boards, the person who typically posts this on 8-Way Run. Again, my co-host is out. We're having a little bit of a scheduling issue, but hopefully we can get that fixed in the future. But anyway, I will march on and keep doing these and bringing on guests and that whole thing. So without any further ado, might as well introduce my guest for this one, Heaton. What's going on, dude?
Greetings. How are you all out there in internet land?
Well, I'm doing well. I don't know how they're doing, but I have.
They're doing great because they're listening to us.
That's true, and I have to admit that the bass in your voice makes makes me giggle. So I can't.
Why, thank
I can
you.
only imagine what it does to them. So okay, so Northwest Championships, you just mopped that up. Before we get into that, though, I do like to ask our guests, give a little background for those who, maybe they've heard the name, but they don't know exactly, where you come from, where you started, that sort of thing. So I presume that you're from Washington or that area. So I'll let you start there and then just kind of give us a background on what game you started with and how you got into the scene.
Well, I was born and raised Federal, Washington. And the very first fighting game I ever played was Tekken 2. My sister's boyfriend at the time brought over his PlayStation, and he had just bought in Tekken 2. And I went through arcade mode at about age of 5 with Law and spammed 3+4 on the computer. And let me tell you, I was the best 5-year-old Law player in the history of 5-year-old Law players.
Ever.
Undefeatable. So I would go on just playing the hell out of Tekken. I loved it to death. One day I was at Blockbuster and I found this game that had this cool samurai-looking dude on the cover. And that ended up being Soul Blade, and that pretty much set in stone my path to becoming a great Soul Calibur player, or mediocre Soul Calibur player, if you will. I hadn't started playing competitively until October of last year at Devastation 2011. That was my first competitive outing. I did pretty terrible, I gotta say.
Most people do, I have to be honest, when they go to their first tournament.
It was pretty bad. Met with Crazy CD, Zefukai, Lobo, Lolo, pretty much like anyone who was anyone. That's where I finally got my first offline experience, and I was hooked. There's no going back. Once you go to your first major and see what it is like, you're hooked. It's worse than heroin. There's no escaping it. So I've basically, ever since then, I just got ready for Soul Calibur 5, and apparently I'm doing pretty well for myself.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. So with that, good segue into Northwest Championship. So let's let's talk about that tournament a little bit. Now, obviously, you won, so we don't have to talk about how was your bracket experience, because obviously it went pretty well. But I guess first thing. For those of us like myself who don't really make it up to the Northwest very often, kind of tell us like how the event was. Like, was the venue pretty nice? Was it pretty big, spacious? Like, how
It was at Highline Community College, which fairly big campus, really nice place. The event itself was run absolutely flawlessly. I'm definitely going to be making the next one they have. Go to Northwest Majors. I know we tried to get some of the Chicago boys up here who didn't come through, but we'll leave that for another time.
Indeed. Well, I know that they had at least Hawkeye for sure was going out to MLG, and then I know
Whatever.
and I know
Whatever.
LP was trying that, but
Yeah, he sure was trying, wasn't
yeah, he was.
he?
So
Definite props to Mamba, though, who did come all the way out from New Mexico.
who was the farthest away? Did you get like any New York players or any Florida players or anything like that?
No, I think the farthest one was Mamba from New Mexico, Black Mamba. So
Man,
No,
the only time everybody ever comes together is either MLG apparently or Evo. Like that's it. No one travels cross country.
no one travels for like the small things,
It's,
even though it wasn't even that small. But whatever. Well, I'll give you all who didn't come. I'll give you a pass, and we can run it back next time. How about that?
sounds good. Well, despite everyone who didn't go, like myself and all the Chicago players, how was the turnout? Did you guys get a pretty good amount?
It was a fairly good amount. I think it was around 40 or so. Not too big, but not like nothing there at all. It was a nice turnout.
Any idea what the total turnout was for the event?
Oh, I have no idea. It felt like a gazillion.
Well, hey, that's always.
I'm bad at guesstimating.
That's okay. As long as it feels packed, chances are that means there were a lot of people there.
Yeah.
So,
it was.
and that's always good for the longevity of a tournament like that. So, so let's talk the actual bracket tournament. So, again, you won, but were there any other like notable killers, like people like maybe you played and you're like, oh, I knew you were good, but I didn't know you were that good, or maybe players that no one else knows that you're like, oh wow, okay, you showed up for this tournament.
Well, let me just say, when you're Heaton, there are no killers. Period. I don't care who you are, where you're from, nothing. 13th Warrior, for those who watched the stream, he was the Yoshimitsu player who deathcoptered me to death. A lot of people like gave him flack for using deathcopter gimmicks, but I honestly see a very solid player under there. He just needs to learn the game system a little bit more, learn the characters a little bit more. Cam, he's our local Algol player and our favorite Marvel vs. Capcom player. He always scares me just with the way he plays. It's very reminiscent of, for those of you who've ever played Omega, if you're playing him and you just kind of mindfuck yourself a little bit, it's very similar to that. Black Mamba, just because he was the one who knocked me out at Dev, and I had to pay him back for that. So, other than that, no one else.
Just those
absolutely
people.
No one else.
Yeah, I mean, nobody in the grand sense, but aside from those couple people, definitely nobody.
Yeah.
So, okay, so outside of the tournament, so now you have some Evo points. I can only presume that you're going to Evo, correct?
I'm not, sadly.
What?
Not in the cards, unless somebody listens to this and decides to sponsor me for travel fees, tournament registration, and the hotel room, as well as a good amount of money to money match the entirety of France. Cannot make it. I'm very sad about that, but it's not in the cards.
I figured that when you were after the room and board that you were going to say extra money for gambling, but I guess you're not.
I'm not sure. I usually get this a lot. I'm only 19 as of this call.
Oh, I actually did not realize that.
A lot of people are like, wow, you're only 19, but you sound so
sound 37.
Yeah. I will be 20 on July 5th, which is still not old enough to do anything. So
that's true.
That's one of the big things about going to Evo. I'd like to go for the Evo experience, but I'd also like to see everything else there, and there's not a lot you can do when you're only 20. So,
fair enough. I remember my very first Evo. They were actually still doing it in LA, so it was just at a college campus, kind of like Northwest Championships, or Northwest Majors. Sorry, I don't know why I keep the championships, but. So the first Evo experience I ever had, there really wasn't anything extra to do. You just went to the tournament, hung out, did that whole thing. But the first time I went when it was in Vegas, I want to say I was only 19 or 20. And I couldn't gamble or anything. I did get around the drinking thing just because everyone, was bringing stuff back to their room.
Yeah.
But I actually was really fortunate because the one, I think I only went 1 year when I was under the age of 21, and pretty much the entire time, we have a really good buddy who now lives in California, who a Tekken player who for a short period of time, I want to say like 4 or 5 years, he was here in Iowa for school, and he was a big part of the SoCal scene, but he also knew a lot of the Japanese players, and he's Japanese himself, or he's American, but his parents are Japanese, so he knows Japanese fluently. And so he was there, interpreting for us, and it was a really, really awesome door to just kind of hang out with those guys for the whole night. And that's pretty much what I did the whole weekend I was there. When we weren't at the actual tournament, we were in the Japanese guys' rooms just playing games and shit. So I was really fortunate for that. But I completely understand if you're not under 20 or if you're under 21 and you don't want to go to a Vegas.
Yes,
it definitely makes sense. Well, aside from Evo, since you won't be able to make that, any other upcoming tournaments? Like I know CEO is right around the corner. I'm guessing you probably won't make that, but I don't know. Any other stuff that you were thinking about traveling for?
I consider any tournament that's going to be happening as maybe I should go to this. If it's happening, I'm considering going. In particular, looking forward to Summer Jam. Let's see what happens with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's the date for Summer Jam?
Well, I have no idea. I just know I need to go to it.
Okay. But is it only if somebody sponsors you thing? Because Summer Jam, it's quite a ways away.
It is quite a ways. I probably don't need a sponsor for that.
Okay.
But Evo is it's way too close for me to do it on my own.
Gotcha.
So
fair enough. All right. Well, okay. So we kind of got the tournament stuff out of the way. So let's actually talk Caliber a little bit, since obviously that's what everybody wants to talk about. So we'll do the general stuff first. So obviously you like Caliber. I mean, you started with Soul Blade, and then moved up to Caliber. How are you digging Caliber 5 so far? I mean, you're good at it, obviously, but I mean, do you really enjoy it, or is it just one of those things where I'm good at it, I might as well mop everybody up?
I don't understand the mentality of I'm good at it, but I don't have fun. I'll just play to be good. You need to have fun with the games you play. Otherwise, it's kind of a shallow, empty experience. Soul Calibur 5, for me, is one of my favorite Calibers of all time. Probably my favorite Soul game ever. And that's even going right up there with the great Soul Calibur Legends for Wii.
The great Soul Calibur Legends.
That was a great game.
It's funny you should mention that, because I know that there's a lot of people out there who agree with you, who think that you do have to have fun, you have to enjoy the game, you have to have passion for it. But unfortunately, I mean, there are a lot of players out there who just play only because they're good. So. I won't name any names, obviously, but I mean, for those who have been around the scene, you probably know some of the names that I'm thinking of, but it does happen. But okay, so you like the game. So what?
Love the game.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I love the game. I love it to death.
Okay, so you love the game. You love it to death. So it's your favorite game now. Do you think it's what's the best way to say that? Is it your perfect, say, rendition, like version of it? Are there things that you think are drastically flawed with it, or do you think it's pretty close to being perfect?
It has some flaws. One in particular is Siegfried's 2-player costume. That's a really big flaw. If anyone's now you got the mental image, I'm sure you all have. To look at some of the casual parts, I miss some of the old characters. I personally think Zasalamel would be very good in this game system, and I was disappointed that he wasn't in it.
Oh, trust me, you're not the only one.
Yes.
As soon as everyone found out he wasn't in the game, I heard so much pitching.
Poor Omega. Poor Omega. A lot of the characters, I'd like to see some of the old faces return. I'm trying to think of characters that aren't named Yunsung or Sungmina.
Yeah, hey, there's a lot. I know there's a lot of old school, like especially with Caliber 2 players that came back a little bit for this game that really liked and enjoyed Sungmina. So I know that's another.
I feel very sorry for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stages, everything kind of. When there's a very small stage pool, it feels like you've been playing the game for hours on end when you've only been playing for maybe a half hour. Be nice to see more stages. More music, just because I'm a huge fan of the Soul series soundtrack.
Are you one of those guys who downloads the soundtracks to video games and listens to it all the time?
No, I'm the guy who buys the soundtracks and then listens to it all the time.
You don't cheese it out. You actually go buy it.
No, I have the physical. There's something about owning the physical copy of it that's so much better, let's say. Aside from that, I don't think we need any more clothing. I think we're good on the Create a Soul clothing. I can't really commentate on a design perspective, just because my design perspective would be buff Siegfried and nerf anyone else.
Oh, fair enough.
So it's a perfect game gameplay wise, and I won't touch it there. But
gotcha. So
casual people need the casual.
Oh, sorry.
The casual people need a bone here and there, and I wouldn't mind them getting one.
Fair enough. So obviously, pretty much everyone prefers offline to online. But do you play online a lot, like most people, or are you?
I have been accused of being the premier online warrior of Soul Calibur 5.
Ah, gotcha.
And that's actually where my main training comes from. I play a lot with Partisan, Ramon, Zeph, especially. That's usually my main competition. That's how I got ready for Northwest Majors.
It's funny because I was asking Partisan about that, because he said the same thing, that he was primarily an online warrior, and that's where he got a lot of his training and his experience and whatnot. And just like with him, it's crazy to me. Now we have two Evo qualifier winners that are primarily online players, so it's a big shift in the way that fighting games are turning out. Because as far as I'm aware, Calibur is really the only viable fighter online, except for like maybe some version of Street Fighter that you can play on the computer or something.
Yeah,
but some random 2D that they've modded so you can play on thing. But so that's really interesting. So do you? Then I guess I have to ask the logical follow-up question: do you actually prefer online to offline?
I don't think you can say you ever prefer it, but I enjoy it, and I think it's a viable way to train, as opposed to Soul Calibur 4 online, which was pretty terrible.
Yeah, that's I didn't touch 4 at all, but I have definitely heard horror stories. I guess to put it lightly.
To put it very, very lightly.
Yeah. So okay, great. Well, we got the online stuff. So I guess let's talk Siegfried then. So you're a Siegfried guy, obviously. Did pretty
Siegfried.
Siegfried. Siegfried. Okay.
Don't worry, we'll get corrected by all the German listeners we have.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, all of them, all of the -2 that I happen to have. But okay, so let's chat about him a little bit then. So what made you, I guess, first of all, pick him over anybody else? I'm guessing since I believe he's been in it since Soul Blade. I think
he's been here since the start. Yeah.
Yeah. So what made you? I mean, have you always been a Siegfried? I would imagine you have been, but
I have played him since that one day when I got it from Blockbuster, like that very first day.
So
he's been.
So what made you pick him? What stood out about him?
He's very manly.
End of discussion, huh?
End of discussion. Well, you have to understand. When I was a young child, I didn't understand anything about pressure or Yomi or Okizemi. I didn't understand that. I just saw this guy with a giant sword who looked really cool, and that sealed the deal for me forever.
Nice. So there's never been any inkling or anything to change characters or.
Well, at the start of Soul Calibur 5, I think a lot of people went through this whole thing where they weren't sure what they were going to do because their main was not working out. I can point at most of the Siegfried players, most of the Natsu players, Lei Sha players, etc., so forth. I got through it just barely. I was very close to dropping Siegfried.
For who? Now I'm curious. For who?
For what?
For who? For what character? Or you just didn't know? You just knew that.
Anyone else. Okay. Anyone else. Just anyone but Siegfried. I was not feeling him. So I did take a break from him. I went around. I went with my secondary Raphael for a while, and then I realized he was Raphael. I ended up going to Algol, Tira, and Lei Sha, and I enjoy all of them so much that I will learn them. But then I finally came back to Siegfried after kind of understanding, having a better view, I guess, of the game system and the roster. And I realized my problem was I was not playing Soul Calibur 5 Siegfried. I was still playing Soul Calibur 4 Siegfried in my head. I was looking at the matches from a completely flawed perspective. And I think personally that's a lot of the problems that kids are having these days with, they'll look at Lei Sha and say she's absolutely unviable, can't win, or all the people say, oh, they nerfed Natsu's damned, you can't win with her anymore. And then you have people still winning, Hawkeye winning with Natsu, and Mick tearing people up with Lei Sha. I honestly think they're still playing Natsu like she's Taki and Lei Sha like she's Xianghua. We're still not evolved to the next game yet. At least that's how it was for me.
Which is a pretty big statement if you think about it, because those guys, I mean, assuming that that's correct, and they're still playing an old style with those characters, they're still winning. So I mean, what happens once they evolve and actually play the character the way that Caliber 5 wants you to play it?
Well, no, I'm saying that like people like Hawkeye and Mick have evolved. They've transferred successfully. I'm talking about all the online scrubs who have whined about their character and haven't had a good outlook on them from the start, I guess.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I was going to say, I guess I got that a little bit reversed, but I know when I was talking to Hawkeye, especially after he won MLG, like as soon as the patch hit, and everybody saw that Natsu was getting the super nerf, everyone, there were so many people who were mad about that, and so many ex-Natsu players who just completely dropped her, just went to a completely different character, and then here he comes, and he struggled a little bit at his MLG events, but I mean he proved that she can work. I mean she can beat the best in the world. So I mean obviously for those who are listening to this, if you're paying attention to the MLG results this weekend, you probably know that Kiev got his revenge, but he didn't win the spring championship. So something to consider. You can't always drop them just because of blah.
Well, on that, I think if you honestly believe that your character is not viable, that you need to shut up, stop complaining, drop them, and find a character that you think is viable. Because no one really cares that you think character X is unviable or cannot win or has to be buffed to be even barely competitive. No, just drop them and move on. Because you will accomplish so much more if you stop wallowing in this awful, terrible despair and go play someone who you think can actually win and actually play the game. That's the only way you're going to get better, not by sitting on the boards and complaining. That's a lesson I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah, you know what? I actually like that I guess ideology, you can say, because I mean you're absolutely right. Like if you're not committed to the character, you're holding yourself back because of that. So definitely some, at least advice in my mind for anybody trying to pick up the game. Find a character you like and go for it. Stop going back and forth because you think one sucks. No, it's just you. you're sucking.
Yeah.
So with that, okay, so we have some Siegfried stuff. One thing that people have been wanting me to ask as I bring on these guests, you talked about the online and how that's mostly how you get your experience, but people kind of want to know like what your training regimen is like. What kinds of things do you focus on when you're practicing? Do you prefer? Some people, obviously everyone goes into practice or training mode a little bit, but some people do it more than others, let's say that way, and others prefer to actually play way more matches than they do practice mode. So like what side of the fence do you fall on? What kinds of things are you looking for when you are playing, and kind of things of that nature?
Well, it depends. When I'm learning, let's say, a new combo technique setup, I basically go into training mode and drill that until it's muscle memory. I get it done 100%. There's no maybes. It just comes out automatically. If I'm trying some sort of Yomi setup, some sort of new kind of style or new character, I'll probably go online, find someone at least fairly competent. Or if I'm trying someone out for the first time, I'll go to Global Coliseum and pick on the scrubs there and just try it on someone who can actually respond to it. Because training mode's great for drilling that kind of static stuff, but when you need an actual physical response, you have to have a person. You need someone there to say, okay, this does work, or no, this doesn't work. I need to go back to the drawing board.
So you mentioned the Global Coliseum. One thing that I wanted to ask before I forget: when you play online, are you? It sounds like you have your core group of guys, like Partisan and such. But if they're not on, do you typically do the ranked match, or do you just find like a room to go into, or because it kind of sounds like you don't, or you try not to go into the Global Coliseum if you can avoid it.
When I go to Global Coliseum, it's because I have, in my mind, created the latest fashion trends, and I need to show that off to the global public. I do not go into Global Coliseum for anything resembling competitive play. Not even just because the skill level is the skill gap is just so wide there, but they're not really nice people. They're very rude.
For sure.
And I can be quite rude to Ramon and Zeph and Partisan when I'm playing, but it's different when it's between friends. When you have people that you don't even know calling you calling you bad names and such.
We are uncensored here, so you can say whatever you want. But
I already slipped up earlier, and that's just so uncouth. I try to not. It's a personal thing. But.
No, fair enough. I actually remember, not to go on too big of a tangent here, but there's a Tekken player from New York. He goes by the name Exalted. And I interviewed him for one of the Tekken podcasts that I do, and he does not swear. 100%. He never swears ever. And
it's a very good habit.
Yeah, well, I can't remember exactly why he said. I think it was the same sort of thing. It was just a personal choice. But he said that people try to rowdy him up and goad him into saying something, and he just doesn't do it because he's just not not an angry guy. But I thought it's very interesting. Because he doesn't slip up at all, never.
It's something I'm trying to change. I've already slipped up on here a few times, so
yeah.
It's just something I'm trying to get better at. And I have other ways of dealing with people getting me rowdied up and such, as I'm sure everyone saw on stream.
You have the tack in the shoe. Step on that. Old school methods. Okay, so we got the online stuff. Siegfried. Let's see. What other questions?
Ask about Siegfried, but not Raphael. I'm very surprised. Poor Raphael.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Raphael players. I don't know. It's weird. I mean, he looks kind of okay, but I don't know.
I think he is probably the worst character in the game, and at the same time, I think he's completely viable for competitive play. So with that, I'm basically calling out anyone who says that their character can't win.
That's true. You absolutely.
I will money match you with your own character, and I will beat you if you do not think your character is viable.
That's a hell of a challenge. Okay, I'll give you that much. But you know what? To be fair, I mean, there's a lot of critics of the system for at least certain aspects of the system for Caliber 5. But if there's one thing that's relatively undeniable, it's the fact that it allows every character to win. I mean,
I love it.
Yeah, there's just because of Just Guard and the whole counter hit movement and the backdash nerf for blocking and whatnot. Like there's too many ways for a character to hit you for a character to be complete garbage. So definitely something that I do think is an advantage for Caliber 5. Okay, but aside from that, I'm trying to think if I have any other questions. Like, I'm actually trying to get our little interviews here shorter than they were at the start. They were over an hour when we first started doing these. So sorry to all those who actually had to suffer through those hour-long interviews. So I'm trying to make sure that I ask the best questions, and I think I've run out. Okay, so we got the future, we got everything taken care of on that end. So with that being said, before I move on to like the little finalizing portions of the interview and the podcast, do you have any like topics that you really want to talk about that maybe we didn't get to or people aren't talking enough of or anything like that?
Let's see. I've already called people out on whining about the game. I guess we could tie in supporting the game. I'd like to see people supporting the game a lot more. Right now, I see a lot of people hating on the game religiously almost that it's a bad game. It's a random game. It doesn't reward good play. It's the same deal. If you don't like it, then get out. You're not wanted here. We don't want to hear your bickering. This community is for people who really care and want to have fun with this game. And you bring everyone around you just so far down, and you make us look so childish just by your presence. So please, if you're not satisfied and you don't have anything that you want to really add and help make the game better or make the community better, then why are you here? Ask yourself that. That's just one of my things.
Yeah, plus they're probably Marvel players, in which case...
I have no problem with Marvel players, actually. I recently, at Northwest Majors, just saw competitive high-level Marvel play for the first time, and I think I'm going to pick up Marvel now.
Oh man, I feel so sorry for you. Like I actually don't have a problem with Marvel players. I actually know a lot of people who play Marvel, and they're perfectly fine. I hate the game. I hate that game so much. And I tried it. I tried to like it. I tried so hard to like it. I played it for like the first couple months it was out, and I was really hardcore about it. I was going to tournaments. I was trying to do it, and I just couldn't. I was so close to slitting my wrists and jumping off a bridge that I had to.
That's a good stopping point. That's a very good. I don't know. It looks a lot of fun. It looks very crazy. It reminds me of old Devil May Cry 3 combo videos, and I loved that to death. So it looks fun. I'll be picking it up soon.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy. I can't say that it isn't. So it's a lot of garbage getting thrown on the screen. One of the final portions or segments to the podcast you kind of already hit on. I usually like to put people on the spot and give them the metaphorical soapbox and let them just kind of rant on something, but you kind of already did that, but I'll still ask anyway. Is there anything else out there that makes you just like really mad? I mean, I know you're trying to not swear, but I guess we can use that. Is there anything out there?
Let me be real for a moment. Let me be real for a moment. One of the stupidest fucking things ever is when I see some Chicago viola player go like, oh, I think I'm going to play Mitsurugi. That was the stupidest fucking shit I have ever seen. Not going to name names here because, it's very, personal for me. I don't want to put anyone on blast for being a moron. But come the fuck on, man. What the... Oh, dear God. That... I was just so mad when I saw that shit. And he did it again. He did it for like 2 rounds. Like 2 matches. Like, what the fuck? Oh, I wanted to punch my screen because I know he's better than that.
Whoever could you be talking about?
some Chicago viola player. There's like maybe 50 of those there, right?
Oh yeah, there's a lot. I hear a lot of pretty good ones.
Other than that,
yeah,
nothing lately. No, I've been quite calm and collected lately.
All right then. Well, with that being said, the gas has run out of the tank. I've run out of questions. So a little bit of shout outs on my end. Congratulations to Woes for winning East Coast Throwdown. I actually think that's the first alpha player that has won a major.
Not the last.
No, definitely not the last.
It begins now.
So definitely some interesting stuff coming up with him winning that, and I'm sure he's going to Evo. Also, I have to say congratulations to Keeve and Kayane. They came over and did their thing for MLG. So we have to step it up here in the U.S. if we're gonna defend home territory, so to speak. And kind of for those listeners out there who've been listening to the podcast series, I'll definitely reach out to Woes. I'm still going to try to get Kayane or Keeve or both onto the podcast, but for anyone who hosts these kinds of things or tries to do stuff like this, how hard it is. It can be to schedule that for international people, especially if they don't speak the same language as you do. It's a pretty big barrier right there. So, but other than that, probably here in the next week or so, we'll probably have a double episode. I've been telling everybody about that because we have so much stuff, so many tournaments going on. But we get a little break here pretty soon. The only thing left is CEO, and then right after that is Evo. So not much left of the Evo season. Other than that, that is all I have. So I will give you the last word, Heaton, if there's any shout-outs you want to do or any last comments you want to make before we call it a day.
Oh, my shout-outs. Let's see. Where do I begin? Shout-outs to Partisan, Ramon, Zeph, just for being my training buddies and very good friends. Lost Providence, even with the things I may have said earlier about certain Viola Chicago players. I love you to death. He's a great guy. What can I say about him? He's LP. Shout outs to Great One for keeping the scene in Seattle alive. Love you to death. The Seattle scene in general, just for being a great group of guys. I think that about does it.
That's it.
That's everyone.
That's everyone that matters.
I'm sure I'm going to get a bunch of people. Why'd you forget about me?
That's okay. You can be like, stop your crying. God damn it. All right. Well, with that, thank you very much for coming on to the podcast. And
it was a pleasure.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, we will be back with more, hopefully, greatness on the podcast series. So stay tuned and have a good one.
Have a good one.